Um, Hi, my name is Juan Salazar, and I'm the editor of dataeconomy.com. I'm here with Andrew Clegg, who is a data scientist at Etsy. Welcome, Andrew.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I'd like to start with a very simple, straightforward question. What are you presenting at Data Natives?
So I'm presenting a talk on Friday about how to use taxonomies and other sort of structured metadata sources in data science models. It's about the idea of semantic similarity and how that can be useful to data scientists. I think a lot of companies have got a taxonomy describing their products or their content, but there are some old tricks that have been around for years that make that data easier to use in a data science context, but not a lot of, I guess, younger data scientists may have come across it, so I thought it might be a useful thing for people to know about.
Did you decide to talk on to give this presentation because of the work that you do at Etsy, or just general?
Yeah, actually, it's something that I'd used quite recently at work when the invitation came to come and speak here. So it was one of the things that I thought, you know, that's something that I've used. I can show some demonstration of how valuable it is, but I haven't seen anybody else talk about the same kind of approach at a conference before. So it seemed like a good opportunity.
Oh, that's a first. That's good. Why do you think, this is also a very broad, very general question, why do you think data has become so important? Why do you think data has become so important in business, in government, in policy, like pretty much in every area, like recently?
So I would turn it around. I don't think there's ever been a time when data wasn't important. You know, going back through the entire computer age, obviously data's been important, but even if you go back before that, you can look at examples like Florence Nightingale saving soldiers' lives in the Crimean War, or John Snow, who saved London from a cholera epidemic. They both used data visualization, very carefully collected data, all collated very manually and drawn up very manually by hand, but they would never have saved the lives they did without that data. So I think it's just it's a hot topic at the moment. The term artificial intelligence seems to have come back from the dead, like the Terminator at the end of the movie.
Has a life of its own now.
Yeah, and the press seem to have decided it's the next big thing. But I don't think there's ever been a time when it wasn't a big thing.
Yeah, I don't think as you said that it wasn't a big thing before, but I think that it's pretty much everybody wants to use it. Or now everybody all of a sudden has data that they want to use. That was sort of the angle that I was trying to get into. Like what was the sort of the spark that made everybody realize, oh, aha, data is now the resource that my organization needs?
I think it was probably the huge growth of companies like Google that came out of nowhere, and Facebook, you know, in a matter of like a handful of years, from nobody had heard of them to suddenly everybody in the world uses them practically, you know. And I think when companies in other industries started seeing that was possible, then they kind of thought, well, what have we been missing out on all of these years?
Okay. Now something more personal. What kind of work do you do at Etsy? Well, first of all, what do you love about your job? And second, what kinds of tools or methods do you use on a day-to-day basis, which is sort of like primordial to the work that you do?
Yeah, so I'm on the data science team, which is part of the search sciences group. So we do a lot of work relating to recommendation engines, search relevance ranking, other kind of data-driven, user-facing features of the site, plus some stuff that happens behind the scenes like fraud detection and that kind of thing. So we're very much about building data-driven products and taking the state-of-the-art research from academia and also from other companies these days in machine learning and working out how we can improve user experience and also improve the bottom line as well and make Etsy a nicer place for everybody to use on the buyer side and the seller side.
It's sort of a broad spectrum then of products that you're working with, or products that
so we're mostly working in the search and recommendation space, so we do a lot of work on Hadoop. But then we also work with search engines like Apache Solr to deliver data to users. We've got a lot of in-house technology as well. And we've recently acquired a startup based in San Francisco called Blackbird AI, who specialize in semantic search using a combination of textual, visual and other signals in order to provide better search rankings. So I'm really excited to work with them closer. It's a great place to learn from people that are cleverer than you, I think. I mean, we've got you know, ex-Google people, ex-Twitter people, we've got, you know, Stanford graduates, we've got the guy that invented the PHP programming language, Rasmus Lerdorf, but it's a small enough environment. You know, we're about 300 engineers at the moment, I think, that you can actually feel like you're making an impact and you're not just one cog in a huge machine. Like if you're working for one of the huge players like, you know, Amazon or Facebook.
Then, yeah, forget about it. Then, and I guess that also, it's like you say, it's a small environment. It's small enough to actually go to talk to the Stanford graduates or to the guy who invented the PHP language or to all these people. It's not that you just know that they work there. No,
exactly. I mean, you run into people in meetings. It's a very, we have a very bottom-up decision-making process. It's a lot of the technical decisions are deferred to the engineers that are actually going to be implementing them. So it's not that kind of decisions come down from on high and everybody has to follow them, but there's a lot of collective analysis of problems, and everybody's got a voice, and I think that's really important.
No, that's really cool. But I would also, if I were, I was looking at your background, and I would also think that it would be a pleasure working with you, or it would be a very enriching experience, because you've held positions in data strategy and also founding and managing teams of engineers and of data scientists. How do you go about the process of setting a data strategy for a business, and also what things do you look for when you assemble a team of data scientists or engineers, and how do you manage them?
I think you have to start with the actual problem you're trying to solve. You know, talk to your users, talk to your stakeholders, whether they're inside your business or whether they're external customers. You know, depending on what your business model is, maybe both of those. Never start with the technology. I've seen people, particularly in big enterprises, go, "We need to make a Hadoop." Or whatever. We don't really know what for, but everyone else is making one, so let's make one of our own. But that's the wrong way to go about it. You've got to start thinking about what you're trying to achieve. Quite often the latest and greatest technology isn't what you need, and people reach for sort of huge distributed platforms like Hadoop or Spark or whatever because they're cutting edge, whereas actually a lot of companies have got data that you could get real value from just on a laptop if you put it in front of a smart person and gave them free rein, right? So I think once you answer that question, what you're trying to achieve and why, then all of the other decisions about, you know, what kind of mix of team you need, what technology to go for and so on will all flow from that.
Okay. How long have you actually been working in data science?
Well, I suppose since 2001, when
well, 15 years, that's sort of a long time.
Yeah, it wasn't called that in those days. I was originally a web developer when in the original kind of 90s web boom, and then the Human Genome Project started drawing to a close, and molecular biologists were desperate for people with good tech skills to come and help them analyze all that data, which was, you know, only on the scale of gigabytes, which seems small these days. But it was much bigger than anything that bioscience had ever dealt with before. So there was a big push to kind of cross-train people from a tech background with enough biological skills that they could work on that data, and then people from a biology background with enough tech skills so they could collaborate as well. And I mean, a lot of what people refer to as data science these days, we just called informatics in those days, whether it was bioinformatics or medical informatics or geographical information systems or whatever. It's nothing really new. It's just applied to business instead of science.
I hear that answer a lot whenever I talk or I interview scientists of different backgrounds, of physicists or chemists, that pretty much everything that we call data science now it's in some way or another already applied to the natural, very well-known sciences that we know. It's nothing new, like you say. It's just it's not repackaging, but I think it's more applied to businesses that it's now called data science. And
exactly.
The main purpose, and that sort of way.
I suppose if you're working in a science lab, then everyone's a scientist. So you don't you don't call yourself a data scientist. You're just a scientist, right?
Scientists usually, of course. And speaking of the topic of data science, which application do you think is going to take center stage in the near future, or which one would you personally like to see?
Well, I think there's a huge amount of untapped potential in the education world. my previous job before Etsy was an education company, and some of the techniques that we take for granted, machine learning techniques and so on, are very slow to take hold in the education world. A part of that is because you can't just tell a parent or a teacher, trust the computer. If it's a black box, you've got no idea why it said that your student might need remedial action or something like that. You need to be able to communicate it well, make it transparent enough to be trustworthy and so on. I think there's a big gap between machine learning engineers who are coming up with more and more accurate ways to make predictions, but at the same time not necessarily making them transparent enough to be sort of credible to people from a non-technical background. That doesn't really matter if what you're doing is sort of, I don't know, recommending videos on Netflix or something. People go, oh, yeah, I want to watch that, that's cool. But if you're actually putting together a personalized curriculum for a student that might make them learn twice as fast as if they're just using a general purpose one, then you need to be able to tell the parents and the teachers and the students themselves, of course.
Still need the credibility.
Why do we think this is the thing you should be focusing on and not that, right? So that's one area where I really think that we'll see a lot of growth over the next few years. I hope we will anyway, because there's a lot of untapped potential there.
That might be something that we'll tap into for Data Native 2017, actually. To wrap it up, why did you decide to join the conference, and what are you looking forward to?
I think it would be a great place to talk to people, have these good conversations. I mean, I usually end up enjoying the corridor track in conferences just as much as the actual talks, those informal chats over lunch or coffee or whatever. In terms of specific things, I just saw a really interesting talk by Cortical about their natural language processing technology.
Is fascinating.
Yeah, and it seems to be based on the structures of the human brain in a completely different way to how neural networks work. I did a PhD in natural language processing many years ago, so I'm kind of interested to see how much of the workings of that algorithm that they're allowed to share. So I'm going to go and have a chat with them over lunch because I'm curious.
Hopefully you'll get some insights there.
Yeah,
all right, thank you very much, Andrew.
Thank you.
All right.